All right, let's get right into it. We tend to think of finance as this one single global system. But what if there was a different way to do things? A system built not just for profit, but for actual empowerment. So today, we're going to peel back the layers on Islamic finance and see how its principles and tools are being used to create a whole new paradigm for economic development. In this quote right here, it really just gets to the heart of the matter. It's from the president of the Islamic Development Bank Group, and it hits the nail on the head. So often, traditional aid can feel like a Band-Aid, right? It's a temporary fix for a much deeper problem. The goal here is something way more fundamental, a system that tries to tackle the root causes of poverty head-on. So what does this new paradigm actually look like? Well, it all starts with the core philosophy driving the whole thing. Right at the center of this movement, you have the Islamic Development Bank, or the ISDB. They're really pioneering what they call the economic empowerment approach, and their goal is honestly transformative. It's about helping people go from being recipients of aid to becoming empowered, productive members of society who are in the driver's seat of their own economic lives. So this is the crucial part. It's all about a massive shift in mindset. We're moving away from the idea of just giving handouts and moving toward providing the tools, the capital, and the opportunities that people need to build their own sustainable futures. It's about building real, lasting self-sufficiency. But what's the engine that actually powers this new paradigm? Well, it's a really unique financial system built on a very specific set of principles. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of what makes this all work.
Okay, now you've probably heard of this one. The most famous principle is the prohibition of riba, which is interest. In simple terms, this means you can't charge a fixed, preset return just for lending someone money. Now, profit isn't forbidden, not at all, but it has to be earned through real economic activity, like actual trade or shared investment.
And this leads us right to another core pillar, asset-backed financing. This is huge. Every single financial transaction has to be connected to a real, physical, tangible asset. We're talking about a car, a piece of machinery, raw materials for a business. The point is, finance has to be tied to the real economy. It's about generating value through actual goods and services, not just, numbers on a screen, making more numbers on a screen. This then brings us to another major difference, risk sharing. So instead of a bank just lending money and putting all of the risk onto the borrower, Islamic finance creates a true partnership. The financial institution and the client, they're in it together. If the venture does well, they share the profits. But if it takes a loss, they share that loss too. That just completely flips the script on the typical borrower-lender relationship, right? So when you look at them side by side like this, the contrast is pretty stark. Conventional finance is often based on interest and transfers risk. Islamic finance, on the other hand, is based on real assets and shares risk. It's a fundamental shift from seeing money as just a commodity to seeing finance as a partner in real-world economic activity. This isn't just a different rulebook. It's a completely different way of looking at what finance is even for. Okay, so those are the big principles. But how does this all work in the real world? What are the actual financial products you can, use? Let's walk through two really clear examples. First up, we have something called Card Hassan. You can think of it as a benevolent loan. This is designed for people who might need some immediate help, but it's structured as a really dignified alternative to just getting charity. It's a loan, not a handout. And as you can see from this flow, the process is incredibly straightforward. A client applies for the financing they need, the institution gives them the funds, then, over time, the client repays the loan. And here's the kicker, they repay only the principal amount, exactly what they borrowed. There is zero interest. It's a simple but really powerful tool for support. All right, now for a much more common tool, especially for businesses. This is called murbaha. And the most important thing to get here is that this is not a loan. You've got to think of it as a sales transaction, specifically a cost-plus sale. So let's break down how it works in 3 easy steps. 1. A client comes to the institution and requests a specific asset. Let's say you need a taxi to start a business. 2. The financial institution goes out and actually buys that taxi from a supplier, taking full legal ownership. 3. The institution then sells that same taxi to you, the client, at a price they both agreed on upfront, which is the original cost plus a little bit of profit, and you pay for it in installments. Now, this diagram might look a little complicated, but the key takeaway is right here. The institution must legally purchase and own the asset first before it can sell it to the client. That moment of ownership and all the risk that comes with it is what makes this a legitimate trade. It's what makes it fundamentally different from just a conventional loan. So, we've looked at the principles, and we've seen a couple of the tools in action. Let's zoom back out one last time to the big picture. What's the ultimate goal here? What's the big idea behind structuring finance this way? So, what's the end game? What does this all add up to? Well, the ultimate goal is an economy that just works differently. It's about empowering people not just with money, but with dignity. It's about making sure finance is always linked to real, productive things happening in the world. At its heart, this whole approach is trying to build a more equitable, more participatory economy from the ground up. And all of this leaves us with a huge and pretty fascinating question to think about. In a world that's facing so many economic hurdles, could a system like this, one that's built on the ideas of shared risk and real, tangible assets, actually offer a blueprint for a more resilient and maybe even a more equitable global economy?